Hey, my friend. So before we jump into this amazing conversation, I just wanted to share with you if you are a conscious creative, an ambitious dreamer, maybe you're already a coach and you want to refine your skills, you're a leader, budding entrepreneur, you just want to do something really meaningful in your life. You want to put your head on the pillow and feel like you are doing something that's impacting the world. If that's you, then I'm going to invite you to consider my Life Designer Coach Academy, the next cohort, and get on the priority list. You can do that by going to juliereisler.com/certification. I want you to be the first to know about the details of this next cohort starting in October on the 10th. We have so many master classes and workshops and open houses coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of them. So if that interests you at all, go get on the priority list at juliereisler.com/certification. I'm here so excited with really, Whitney, you feel like you're like an old soul friend. Like I feel like I've known you for so long. I can't believe we met recently when I got to be on your podcast, which I just loved. And I am so excited for our conversation. So we were chatting even before I pressed record, and I'm like, girl, we got to hit record. This is good stuff. This is such good stuff. So I would just love to talk about, I think first and foremost, before we get into some of what you and I were chatting about, like, how did you get into the whole world of becoming a chef and then creating your own high vibe food business? And how did you get into this world? Was this something you always loved and knew you wanted to do? Like, I'd love to just, for those who don't know you, hear a little bit of your story, backstory.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was living in your neighborhood. I was in Washington, D.C., working as an HR manager, and I knew what I was doing on a day-to-day basis was not aligned with who I was. And there was no there was no spark in what I was doing every day. I knew I was off. I knew I had taken the wrong road. And so I was trying to figure out, how do I get back? And you know, a few months prior, I had gone home to visit my parents, and my mom was like, "You've lost your spark. Like, whoever's showing up here in my home is not my daughter. I don't know where you've gone, but you need
Mm.
to find you again. You really need to focus on that little girl that I knew that was spinning and twirling down the beach. You need to tap into that and figure that out." So that's literally what I started to do. I would lay down at night and I would imagine myself at 7 years old, 6 years old, 5 year old. And I would just think about, like, what made me happy as a child? What were the things that I would do that brought joy? And one of those things was everything food, health, wellness, cooking, all that type of stuff I always loved. So, with that work that I was doing, meditating more, yoga, not going out on Friday nights, doing a restorative yoga class, I was shifting my whole life to do things that made me feel good physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally. And that naturally allowed for the sparks to come in, and I realized, you know what I really want to do? I really just want to stop what I'm doing and go to culinary school. But I want to find a school that can teach me just as much in the classroom with, registered dietitians teaching me about nutrition, teaching me about old world healing techniques as classes in a kitchen with chefs and learning those culinary skills. And I found that with the Natural Gourmet Institute where I went in New York. And once I found it, I asked for an application, and then everything else kind of aligned, whether I was ready for it or not. So I asked for the application, and 4 weeks later, I was laid off from my job. So I had no excuse, right? No excuse not to go. So I finished filling out the application, submitted it, was accepted, you know, moved out of my apartment in Washington, D.C., moved to New York City, and just went with it. Went to culinary school. And then the same thing happened when I was done with culinary school. It's like, okay, now what do I do? And you just, face it as it comes. But, uh, you know, tapping into the things that made me happy when I was young helped me change my day to day lifestyle, which then allowed for the clarity to step in on the new paths to take. And like we were chatting before we pressed record, that's kind of what I've been doing recently again. I've been tapping into, when I reflect on my day, all right, I always think I love the 5 minute journal. I always think about those three questions at the end. Like what are three great things that happened to me today? And then what's one thing I wish I would have done? And I've been using that reflection time to think, okay, like what am I doing on a day-to-day basis that's serving me? And what do I need to step away from, whether it makes sense or not, because it's really not making me happy.
Oh, there's so much in here to look at and unpack. I love your story, and I think this is so relatable. I'm just thinking for anyone that's listening that's like, I've lost my spark. You said it like you felt like I've said it like it feels like the light goes out, and you said, it just felt like there was not a spark. Your mom noticed. She was like, "What happened to my daughter? We're made of energy." And we'll talk about this because I know this is a lot of what you do and infuse in your food, your spices, your work. So that energy, you felt that dwindling of energy, that spark, getting dimmer and dimmer. And what I think is so important here is the way that what I'm hearing is the way that you rekindled that was remembering, wait a minute, like what brought me joy, what lit me up when I was little, when I was a little girl, when I was younger, when there weren't constraints, when I wasn't necessarily worried about making a paycheck or following what I'm supposed to do. And what's so beautiful, Whitney, is that led you into this whole world of, you love food and wellness and health. And that this to me, this is where when we're listening and paying attention and looking for what gives me energy, it led you into realizing, oh, I want to learn these old world healing secrets. I want to learn how to use food and cook food and make food that's really going to help people feel good and feel well. And so cool. I actually would love to hear. I've heard of the Natural Gourmet Kitchen. I'm like my little girl self is like, I want to go there. I want to do that. That sounds so fun. How was that? A couple years in New York? What was that experience like? Because it sounds like you like plugged yourself back in, getting into that program.
It was the most exciting about 6 months of my life. Honestly, I loved every single day. As we all know, we've all gone to school. There's no one listening to this podcast that hasn't sat in a classroom. And when you are finally in a classroom where you are so excited about what you're learning, it is a feeling like you've never had before, where you cannot wait to get up the next day to go to school and learn and participate. And you can't wait to get home and do your homework. Like you can't get enough of the books that are assigned to you or the documentaries that you're watching or the other extracurricular things that your teachers are telling you to do on the weekend. That's how it was. It was just 6 months of loving everything that I was consuming. And it felt like life finishing school. I felt like, God, this is information everyone deserves to have. Like we spent a day talking about how do we read these egg labels these days? How do we walk into a grocery store and choose our eggs? What should we be looking for at the farmer's market? What's the ideal situation? Real life information. When it's Thanksgiving, how do you choose what size turkey you're going to cook? What's the benefits of doing certain sizes versus smaller sizes? How many people you're serving? That I felt like what I was learning wasn't just going to serve me as a chef. It was going to serve me as being a woman and just being a human being. And I loved it. Absolutely loved it.
I am so excited. We're going to go definitely into some of these. I'm like, we got to share for everyone listening some of these tips. But one thing I want to come back to that I think is so fascinating, and I say this because I know just from this beautiful audience that writes in and shares, oftentimes there's this realization, right? So something is off and you started to dream and to connect and really and to really start changing your lifestyle, like you said, going to yoga, not going out late on Friday night, doing things for your well-being. And then the universe, which may not have felt so great at the moment, let you loose, let go of your job. And so this is a great reminder, that these things are always happening for us, that being laid off, like, I don't know, maybe you wouldn't have left.
Exactly. I don't think I would have. So it was October 2014, I asked for the application. And then I went to Vietnam to visit my brother who was living there. So I asked for the application and then I went on vacation for about 2 weeks. And while I was on vacation, I made sure to take a cooking class while I was in Vietnam. And I shared with my brother, was the first person I shared it with. I shared him the dream and vision. I want to go to culinary school.
Mm.
This is where I want to go. This is the career I want to create. And when I first told him, he was so confused. He was like, I don't get it. This was 2014. My vision didn't make sense then for a lot of people. It would make sense now if I was explaining it in 2023,
Yeah.
but not then. By the end of the trip, he turned to me and said, Hey, I get your vision now. I'm on board. How can I help? And that was
Mm.
amazing. Just to have one person in my corner be like, yes, quit the corporate job, go to culinary school, start over in your mid 30s. You can do it. I'm here. I'm on your team. Just let me know how I can help. And when I got back and 2 weeks later, I got laid off from my job, I did what anyone does. And, you're scared for a moment. You think, what did I do wrong? Like, how did I screw this up that I'm getting laid off? What's wrong
Right.
with me? How am I going to pay my bills? You have that moment. And, I just decided to lean in. I gave myself the day to cry, to pout, to think, oh, woe is me. What's wrong with me? And then the next day, I was like, oh, I have no restraints. I guess I get to go for it. And then I just worked on, how do I make this happen? How do I, in my mid 30s, single with a very tight, financial backing, figure out how to go to culinary school, live in New York, and shift. And I just sucked it up and did
Mm.
it, and asked some questions along the way, but I just did it because there's always a way. It's only
Mm.
our mind that creates the limiting beliefs, as we know. And so every time I hit a limiting belief, I can't do this, I can't do that, I thought, no, that I got to get out of my own way and figure out how to make this happen, and everything else will align.
I I love this story. I love what you said. And I think this is very important for anyone listening. Make sure you have at least one trusted person who can hold that vision and story. It's so funny. We have a similar story. Mine was in similar timing. And I was like, I want to go into health and wellness coaching, which is like at the time was like, what? You're doing what? And so, but you found your brother. Your brother by the end of that trip was like, I gotcha. I see it. I believe in you. And I love this reminder. This is such a great quote. There's always a way. It's a great mantra, actually, affirmation to just remember that when you are following what lights you up, your joy, your where there's energy, there's always a way. And actually, we'll come back to that because that is something you and I were talking about. Like when you don't know the way, what do you do when you don't see the way, the path? And so I applaud you. It takes massive courage to go move to New York City, not really have a clue, like assuming it's going to work out, but putting that all together so quickly. And that takes courage, Whitney. And my sense is that courage
Yeah.
and that energy and joy that you've been able to really lean into that since you finished school as well.
Well, I want to let people know that you can do this too, and it might not look pretty or glamorous. I mean, I just put everything I own in a storage unit. I took 2 suitcases to New York City of clothes and just little things that I knew I needed, my blender, my Cuisinart, just a few items. I moved into an apartment with a roommate, a complete stranger. I brought a blow up mattress, my comforter, and pillows. And I just said, you know
Mm.
what? You can do anything for a short period of time. It doesn't have to, my mantra that I actually always use is, it doesn't have to be forever. It's just for right now. And it doesn't have to be
Mm.
forever unless I want it to be. So I knew, you know what? I can go and sleep on a blow up mattress on the floor with my favorite comforter and my nice pillows, and it's going to be all right because,
Mm.
I will have found a safe place. I will have a shower, I'll have good food. I'll be learning. I can meditate. As long as I'm in a small, safe, clean place, all the other accoutrements I
Yeah.
can get over for 6 months. So I found a way to make it happen. Was it the ideal situation? No. But I'm not living that way now. So
Yeah.
you can do anything for a short period of time.
Take us from, so you finished the program and, for someone who were to, follow you now or see what you're up to. First of all, I love, love, love all of the things that you post, especially, Instagram with the photos of the food I'm always like, oh my God, it's so beautiful. I want all of that. I mean, it's incredible what you've created. And
Thank you.
my belief is that when we're in alignment, with your what I call your Youest your soul self, that higher purpose, the universe is going to bend over backwards to just open doors and to support you. And I love, you have Starseed Kitchen. You have, I'll show people the beautiful magic herbs and spices, which we've just used on chicken the other night, which I love.
Yay! My favorite,
So
my
good.
favorite way to use it.
So good. And tell us, maybe share, so you, from the New York small apartment on your blow up mattress to now having, this great podcast, Starseed Kitchen, the spices, all that's happening now. Maybe share how you went from New York to, I know you're now on, the West Coast in California.
Yeah.
What gave you, like, how did you get here? What helped you to get here? What was without having done this before? What are those ingredients, the main ingredients that helped you to really build something that is thriving and that is so, so powerful?
I would say time. And what I'm
Mm.
doing now is everything I wanted to do in 2014. It just took time to get it started. And that's what was frustrating for me, because I'm the type of person that moves really fast. And I have the big long vision, so I don't understand why I can't just have it now. That's what I keep screaming at the universe for. At It's like, just why can't I have it all now? I'm holding the vision. I've been holding it for so long, but it just took time. And you constantly, as you constantly hit forks in the road. So when I finished culinary school, the restaurant where I was doing my internship, my culinary internship, offered me a job, and they offered me an amazing job. They were a restaurant group in New York City, and they said, "Hey, after you go on your vacation, we'd love for you to come back and work for us in any capacity that you want. If you want to work 50% in the kitchen, so you keep working on your culinary skills, and 50% as our social media manager, we'll take it. If you want to work in the kitchen and run our corporate events, we'll take it. However you want to work for us, we want you to work for us. We'll find you an apartment. We'll set you up." It was it was a dream. And I loved the people I worked for, and I loved this restaurant, and I loved the larger organization and what they were creating. And then my dad at the same time just gave me a call one day and said, "Hey, I know you're starting your career over in your mid 30s. If you want, you are welcome to move home. You can stay here rent free and start your career over. However, that's all we can offer to help you start this new direction. So if you want that, the door's open." And it was, fork in the road. I don't
Mm.
know what my life would have looked like if I stayed in New York and worked for that organization, but I took the free rent and I moved home, which was very hard to move to your hometown where, everyone your age is living the traditional dream,
Mm.
married with kids, and they have, a career or no career, but they're fulfilled. And I'm like starting from scratch as if I'm 21, just graduated from college. But that's the path I took. And I started from scratch, and I worked for a restaurant. And then I started working as a personal chef, the whole time working on the Starseed Kitchen blog. And the whole time I went to culinary school to create my own organic food products. It just took longer to figure out what that niche was. But surprisingly, the niche was something I had already been doing for 20 years, and that was homemade organic spice blends. My family and I have been making them since I was in high school. I've been doing it since 1995. It's 2023. And it wasn't till like around 2018, 2019, as I'm working as a personal chef, and they're like loving these spice blends that I'm putting on their chicken thighs and their whole roast chicken and their crispy smashed potatoes and all the different ways I'm using the spices, and they're loving it. And they're my own family homemade blends, that it suddenly dawns on me that, oh, I guess this is it. I had it the whole time. And I, I think, and that's what I've noticed in my life, how my career's changed is I had it the whole time. It
Mm.
was always in me. It was always with me. I just didn't see the signs of what my path was, but it comes back around.
That is such, I'm like waiting on bated breath. I mean, I know you ended up in, California, but just to hear that fork in the road, right? That decision of, and here's what's interesting, right? You had already shifted gears where either option would have been great.
Hmm.
You'd gone from the manager HR work to really following your passion. So it was like both are great, right? And what I'm hearing is, leaning in to what felt right intuitively inside, and so smart to take free rent. So smart. I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I had had that option. That is awesome. What I also so appreciate here, Whitney, is reminds me of the quote from Wizard of Oz, where Glenda the Good Witch says, "You've had the power all along, my dear." I'm like, oh, it's been in there all along. And so I'm going to say to anyone listening, like,
Yeah.
listen to Chef Whitney here, because you have things that are in you all along, and often
Mhm.
they're in our face. And we're like, I don't see it. I don't know. And it's like, hello, you've been making these homemade family organic spice blends. You said for years and years. I mean, it sounds like over
Yeah.
20 years, if that, if
Yeah.
not more. Yeah.
Yeah. But then that maybe also shows you that to perfect a product, it takes time,
Yeah.
to think that my dad started showing me how he was blending these spices in 1995 in high school. I would start blending our different spice blends together. But he really started showing me when I was 7. And there were certain ones that he would always have in the
Mhm.
house when I was 7. So it's really been a lifelong process earning spice, learning how to make spice blends and seasoning my food and figuring out what I like. It took me basically from 7 to my late 30s, early 40s to then start sharing it with other people, thinking that there was something special there that other people would enjoy too.
Yeah.
And, you know, what we were talking about before we pressed play was, again, like, I've hit another fork in the road. I've hit another time when I'm having to reflect, gosh, I only have so much energy inside me every day. And am I using that energy appropriately? Right. So if I
Mm.
eat more food, I'm not going to gain more energy. You know, there's only so much that I have to expend. Am I expending it in a way that's actually refilling me up with light?
Mm.
And that's the fork in the road that I've kind of hit. And I have to start looking at, how am I spending morning, noon, and night? What's filling me up physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally? And what's not? And if it's not, and it's providing me financial support, emotional, there's obviously some reason why I'm doing it, and I have to figure out, if it's not lighting me up anymore, how to let it go and find the right thing to bring in.
I think this is what we were talking about. I think this is such an important topic, because number one, we're not static. We're constantly evolving and growing. And what I love about you is you're constantly asking, wait a minute, does this give, where's my spark here? Kind of going back to where you were when you were in DC, when you were in the job, and it was like, where's my spark? And so to feel this, start to feel the shift, like, my energy is shifting a little. I'm not feeling it as much in this, maybe it's the catering, maybe it's whatever is showing up. Tell us in terms of, I know, first of all, with your spices, one of the things I love when I read your card, first of all, it's most gorgeous packaging. I was just blown away by your process with, if we could just talk for a minute, the
Mhm.
blessing. And this is not just, I'll just show it again. This is not just like these gorgeous magic herbs and spices, very high vibe, literally high vibe. But there's a process, a ritual you do that I think makes
Mhm.
it very different. I told my husband, I said right away, I said, I could feel the energy of this is different than any other spice we have in our kitchen. I mean, it's like she like glows. She just
Good.
glows in our pantry. So share what you do, because I think it's beautiful how
Yeah, I
you
can only
elevate.
share a few of the things that I do, but as a chef, anyone that cooks for you, whether it's your mom, your dad, your grandparents, a family member, a chef, they're transferring energy from their hands and from their being into the food. So there's not just a transfer of energy that's going on between you and what you're eating on your plate, but the person that prepared that transferred their energy into you. And there's only two types of energy on the planet. There's an up spiral energy and a down spiral energy. And so the
Mm.
person that's working on your food, it's important that they're in a good mood and that they're happy. So they're transferring a high vibration, up spiral, positive energy into your food. We all know that when we come home from work and we're stressed and we had a bad day and we're irritated and we quickly put together a meal, probably a meal that we've made over and over again, once we sit down to eat, it does not taste good and it's not satisfying.
Yeah.
And it usually comes back to our attitude and how we were operating in the kitchen because we were angry, mad, irritated, frustrated, hungry, whatever it was. But when we make that same meal and we're in a positive headspace, we sit down and we're so satisfied. It is so good. And so I think about that in the products that I'm sharing with my clients and my customers. And because I'm only one little human and I can only cook for a certain number of people every day, that limits me on how many people that I can serve. And I want to serve the most number of beings that I can while I'm here in this lifetime. And so if I can transfer energy into a product that people can take into their own kitchens so they can learn how to nourish and heal themselves, I mean, that's for me the most bang for the buck. Like, how can I put massive amounts of energy into a product that people can go and learn how to nourish themselves? And that is my organic spice blend, Starseed Kitchen. So I make sure that they are prepared and blended and bottled using high vibrational music, a certain music frequency, and then we also make sure that mantras constantly play around the spices and that everyone that is working on the spices is saged, clean, and cleared before they walk in to work on the spices,
Mm.
and that the process is also in a space that's properly clean and cleared because we don't need anybody's leftover stuff to be on your food or to be on the product. And then where the product is held, always making sure that that space is clean and cleared consistently
Mm.
because, stuff that we don't want can get stuck to us, can get stuck to anybody. Cleaning and clearing space is always important.
I just am resonating at the highest level with what you're saying. And of course, my brain is going so fast and it's like, oh my God, I wish, like, everyone listening, we can do this with our food. First of all, we can do this. This is such a great reminder, clean and clear before you come home and cook, before you eat, before you even, using these spices, anything, like really making sure your vibration is clear. I got to tell you, this is so beautiful, Whitney. If only all of the food handlers and chefs and people that create food in our society had this amount of attention, intention, and honoring, it's like a
Thank you.
whole different level. And you can just see it, you can feel it. Anytime I see anything you're posting, I'm telling you, this high vibe comes through. It came through
Thank
the
you.
jar, the packaging, the taste. I mean, really, I was like, okay, she is on to something. We know this though with the energy. I'm so glad you brought this up. It is either spiraling up or down, and we are contagious. Our energy is contagious. I would love to go back to the idea we talked about, a fork in the road, which I think is so funny because we keep using words that are like totally kitchen oriented. You're like
No, but I
started.
love them. They're so funny.
Yes.
They crack me up. Yeah.
Yeah. Started from scratch. We're back at the fork. And I'm like, oh my God, I feel like now I just need a big plate of, like, I don't know, pasta, and I don't even eat pasta. That's what's coming up. So just something yummy. I am curious with this idea of energy and following your spark, following your inner light. What does that look like today? Where might you be at a fork in the road
Yeah.
today? And being visionary and being somebody who, I love this about you, wanting to serve. I love that. I'm like, no wonder we feel like sisters. Like you really, and you can just feel it in you. You want to make a big impact. What is that fork in the road today? What's coming up for you? And as vulnerable as you like to be, what are you noticing is ready to release? What are you looking to add more of? Like, share with us what's going on with you and what that looks like.
Absolutely.
Hey, beautiful you, it's Julie. I'm just pausing for a moment because I want to share in case you don't have this yet. I am going to encourage you to get your hands on my tool set to design your best life. It is free. Here's the copy. And it is pretty darn amazing, if I may say so myself. It is a 25-page guidebook. There are 7 specific practices, one for each day of the week, that are going to help you really to design your best life, to work on your mindset, on your mindfulness practices, designing your day very specifically. I'll show you here. I have a gorgeous tracking system that is all about how you align your values with how you're spending your time. And there's so much more. There's also a little extra free gift in there. I won't tell you what it is, but definitely make sure you get this for you, for your friends, whomever. It is free. Just go to juliereisler.com/toolset to get your copy. And would love to hear, what is your favorite tool out of the 7? Which one did you resonate most with? There is also an audio track in there as well. I've shared one of my quick grounding meditations. So I hope you pick it up. juliereisler.com/toolset. It's free. It's for you. I've used these tools with hundreds of clients and my coaching students, and I use them with myself. So I hope they help you to be your Youest you. All right, back to the show.
Well, I mean, I'm very honored that I get to share this with a spiritual life coach like you. Maybe you can help me figure out how to create more space so I take the right road. And I want to just be honest with anyone that's listening so they can learn as well from this. Because this happens to everyone. And man, the forks in the road just keep coming. It's not like you have it once in your life, just like people think you have a spiritual awakening once. No, it just keeps happening. It never stops. Like the first one is just the first. But where I am in my career, so I am a health supportive personal chef serving 5 different beautiful families here in Southern California doing their custom meal prep. And then I have my line of Starseed Kitchen organic spice blends, as well as my podcast, the High Vibration Living Podcast. And what I also do is anytime anyone needs a chef to cater a party, whether it's for 10 people or 65 people, I do events. And I have a team, I have bartenders, I have a whole team where we go and we cater events, and they're beautiful. The finishing results are beautiful. And it's a great way for me to make extra money to fund the podcast and fund Starseed Kitchen. But it's not lighting me up. And I notice when I do that job, I get really angry and frustrated. Versus when I'm working as a personal chef, it's flow and ease and grace. And I have a system, and I do my job. And when I leave, I feel complete. Like I know I did a good job and I'm happy with the quality of work that I've presented my clients. And, I'm fully satisfied. But when I go and do these big events, it never feels good enough. Never feels like I was able to execute at my highest level. And I don't get fully paid my worth for the amount of time and energy that goes into it. Big events, whether it's, for 10, 20, 30, 60 people, the larger the event usually takes me up to 40 hours in a week to fully complete. From the phone calls with the clients to the menu options, to finalizing the menu, to the grocery list, to all the little accoutrements you have to order to make it special that day of, to the day where you actually are grocery shopping and executing the event. That's a 17-hour day. And then the time it takes to unload everything at home, clean your own kitchen and house, and then physically, emotionally, spiritually, and mentally recover. That's the one that people often forget to add into how long a job takes them. Certain jobs we do require our physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental bodies to recover. And that is additional time, that it's costing you. And so I just realized the payout's not there. Is it really funding the spice blends and the podcast? And monetarily, and if you look at my bank account, an accountant would say, well, yeah, but something doesn't seem right and something seems off. And it's not sparking me up, bringing me joy, and it's creating physical anger inside my body. And my thought that's kind of come up the past 2 weeks is, wow, so if I say no, what if I said no to the next time someone asked me to do an event? And instead I spent those 40 hours in a different way. I got more focus on the type of people I invited to be a guest on my podcast. And I spent a little more energy on Starseed Kitchen spices. And then I spent a little bit just more energy on me and just taking care of myself, maybe doing extra meditations, more work on, supporting my body, more exercises, more downtime, more clearing clutter in my home. What if I took those 40 hours and spent it on those 3 activities instead of executing the event for money? And is there a new way that I can kind of create abundance and joy? Is what I'm thinking.
This is I love that we're in the, like, I want to call it the messy middle ingredients. Like if we're making the mix, we're in the mix. Like you have not baked it yet. Like we're really talking real time. So first of all, thank you for sharing so honestly and so authentically. And I think it's powerful. I'm listening to you, and what I'm hearing is the cue for you is anger, is frustration, which
that's a sign I'm out of alignment.
Yes. I had this whole, I don't know if you studied the 4 elements or about, or the 5 elements, but that springtime anger, it's so powerful because you're using it as a messenger. And I'm like, oh, how smart, like how wise to see, oh, this anger is a messenger. What it's telling you is this is not aligned anymore. It doesn't matter if my bank account looks different, because your account of your spiritual, mental, physical account is saying otherwise. And I think that's what we're saying is your body temple, your emotional well-being, your spiritual connection is saying, yeah, that money thing might look fine, but we're not fine here. This doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel aligned. And that really takes it takes courage to listen to that, to look at the anger and say, okay, that's a message. That's a flare. That's telling me something. And what I also heard that you said was so important, Whitney, is it could be that those 40 hours, could be on your podcast, could be on your beautiful spice blends, or could be on you, infusing that energy back into you, whether it's movement, whether it's decluttering, whether it's just time off. And I think that's the one area often we overlook is, oh yeah, what about just maybe there is no productivity. In fact, maybe 20 of those hours are completely for you to be free, to just enjoy.
And maybe that's where the information will be able to flow in to let me know what the new source of income can be for me that is in more alignment. And I love that you're letting me talk this out, because I know I'm not alone in thinking this way, and thinking, God, I don't know if I can keep doing that. It's soul sucking, but it pays the bills.
Yeah.
And you just hit the point where you're like, God, I got to walk away, because I'm not going to make it out alive if I keep offering that. And I did this 2 years ago. I was in Sedona on a little Kundalini yoga retreat. And during the yoga meditations, I realized, wow, I'm cooking for somebody that's sucking the life out of me. And they pay better than anybody else, but they're sucking the life out of me. I have to walk away. So I left that yoga retreat, and I gave my notice and offered a new chef to replace me. And it took a few months for my body to adjust, but all the physical pain I was feeling and the life-sucking experience that I was feeling on the inside, it all lifted once I walk away. And new financial abundance did come in. I got supported.
Yeah.
But, when it hits, every time it does hit, it's really scary because it's like the long walk off a short plank.
Mm. Mm.
You know what I mean?
Of course. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Well, I think what's so important, and I just keep feeling what a gift to have this conversation with you. I feel like we got into a little like I'm not necessarily coaching, but just listening to you in real time. And I have to say, this is what it looks like behind the curtain in the moment to moment when you said it like I can't you you've become aware of what you love and that connection. You can't go back to sleep. I really believe that you've had
Mhm.
that inner awakening to this is I'm living a life where I'm just going to trust this and I'm going to follow what's in alignment. And as I'm listening to you, that frustration, that anger is your key. Like, oh, it does not work to work with this family because it's sucking the life out of me. This doesn't work now because a lot of times we just kind of try to go back to take a nap, go back to bed, don't listen. And what's so fantastic about you is you are listening and you don't know. And this is where I think that I call it that full-time faith, like that faith that knowing is probably a better word, that knowingness that the universe is going to deliver, is going to provide, and probably something better. This is the thing I keep seeing. And you have all this evidence, which is so great. I often do this where I create a little evidence list. Like, okay,
Mhm.
look at all the times this has happened. I mean, you've already in this conversation, I'm like, oh, you have like a great list. Like you clearly are supported. You can
Yeah.
see it in each of your examples. So another way to look at it, I'm like, oh, I'm excited to see and hear what is going to come through you because I can feel it. There's something else that,
Mhm.
of course, is going to be both abundant, but also use your gifts and skills. Do you have any sense or feeling about that yet? I know you said you often can get a greater vision down the road. If you were to tune in, and maybe you don't have that yet today, but I am curious, is there anything bubbling that you're like, I sort of feel like maybe this direction or this thing? I don't know. Curious.
Yeah. So what's been bubbling up is that I need to financially invest in a team member to support me with the podcast and support me with getting aligned sponsors. And that I'm better off spending my energy on bringing on a team member and working more on the podcast than going out and doing the physical labor that I know brings an immediate return.
Yeah.
And take that, it's another risk. But it's time. And
Mm,
what I've also kind of gotten the hit on is I need to start spending extra time on creating a social life and connections with other people. And that will naturally create alignments because when you own your own business and you love what you do, I love what I do. You know, I just wish that I had more hours in the day, but it's really easy for me to sacrifice a social life to do more work. So
yeah.
could I have gone and spent 4th of July with friends and family? Absolutely. But I chose to work. And we often don't know what we're really sacrificing when we do that and what could have come
Mhm.
from me meeting new people or spending time with old friends and family. So I think that's also what's happening is it's time
Mm.
for me to prioritize connections and relationships.
This is so fascinating because I feel like this notion of the fork in the road, I can hear you're like back at it this time and you said it. Yeah. There's not just one like spiritual awakening or one, this is we get better at it, right? We build those muscles.
I hope so.
Oh yeah. No, I think I guarantee you. Cuz well, let me tell you. They do keep coming. And the more we deal with them. So what I'm really hearing for you, Whitney, what you were saying that's so interesting is, you're in the realm now of what you love, right? The spark is back. It's almost like the spark got like you got a huge stoked fire going on so much it's burning out a little. And so that connection, I keep going these elements. It's like that's
I
maybe
love
the
it.
water. I know, I don't know where it's coming from, but I'm like, I'm going to go with it. The water, like we need some flow and water. And so that
Mhm.
connection, those relationships, what I'm hearing is there's so much brightness. I mean, now you've got like so much spark that, okay, how do I make sure there's a balance and harmony? How do I make sure, during those holidays, and it sounds like this last one that you did was really such in a way, a gift, because it really was clearly showed you this does not work anymore for me and my energy.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes. So much so when I shared some of the challenges, I just shared with my mom some of the challenges that were coming up for this party I was doing. And she said, you got to write this stuff down. She's like, I mean, I'm sorry that you're having to deal with these challenges as you navigate catering this event. But I mean, this is also kind of hilarious. You need to write this stuff down because I don't think you're going to be doing these things anymore. Just, and that's something
Ooh.
that I find as well is when the challenges in a job become so ridiculous, where you're like, I don't even know where someone created that obstacle that I now have to jump over. When they become ridiculous, so hard and challenging, there are moments where those are the right ones that you have to push through. And there's moments where the other ones where it's like, okay, the universe is making it very clear that this is not your path anymore. And
Mm,
then now you need to become clear again on your value,
yeah.
if that makes sense.
Oh, 100%. I think what came to me as you're speaking, I'm like, oh, I totally sense a memoir is here, and I could see almost like not a spoof on it, but like a mini docuseries or a memoir or something. I mean, I'm like, I want to know the stories. I'm sure.
Oh, because now it's getting kind of funny. Like,
Yeah.
I never really tell people certain things that happen to me as I work as a chef because I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I don't like calling out the negative or calling out people. But the things that have happened, I've been, bitten by a dog really badly, like
Ooh.
needing to go to urgent care, multiple doctors, potential stitches. I've was banished to the garage to prepare all the food in a garage, and they rented an oven because I wasn't allowed to work in the kitchen. The kitchen was perfectly fine. I've had, environments where the husband's a little inappropriate with me and
Mm,
let me know that the only reason I'm always cooking in their kitchen is because he loves my ass. You know,
ooh.
how just when you look back, I mean, it's kind of hilarious. Some of them have been physically painful,
Yeah.
but just so many interesting stories
Mm,
where sometimes I wonder if I should share them or if it's just part of the journey and it's in the past and it's time for me to continue down the lane in finding ways to, I would say, elevate how I'm serving and
yeah.
elevate how I'm spending my energy and making sure it's the most bang for my buck. I'm
Yeah.
helping the most people as also it's filling up my cup.
There you go. It's got to be both and, right? Where you're serving and filling your cup. Side note, I was like, oh my gosh, this sounds like Confessions of a Gourmet Chef. Like I could see, life lessons from the table, from the stove, from that, like, how do you continue to hold your high vibe, high vibration when you have someone commenting about your butt or about, not letting you use their stove. And so anyhow, another time we can talk. I'm like, I hear a
Yeah.
memoir, a book. I'm like, my gosh, there's so much here. There's so much.
Well, I worked in a restaurant kitchen and, the other
Yeah.
cooks, the other line cooks would always make sexual jokes. And my thought always was, you know what? At least, certain times you can't be offended. At least they're recognizing that they find you attractive or that you're beautiful. And you
Right.
take the compliment within that. And then you
Yeah.
realize, you know what? If this is not the environment for me, I'm allowed to leave the environment.
Yeah.
No
Yep.
one's making me stay here. So in the moment, I would find the compliment in the uncomfortable situation.
Mm,
And then I decided how long I was really ready, how long I was willing to put up with it. And then recognizing wasn't when it wasn't my environment to
yeah.
leave and leave politely, and
Yeah.
professionally, but leave
Yeah.
because it's not my job to change other people's behavior.
Mm,
I recognize what my job is in those certain positions is to provide them with healthy, high vibration, delicious food that nourishes them or nourishes the customer. But if the environment itself is not right for me, I'm not in control of that. I can leave.
Absolutely.
And I think people can apply that to any corporate job too. And that's kind of what led me to where I am now is, if it's not your environment, you can go through the right chain of commands to let your management know that there's something off in the environment. But if they don't want to clean it up and fix it,
Yep.
it's not your job to do it. And you can exit gracefully.
Oh, I not only agree, I've experienced much of this myself. I have a feeling others listening. Um, the thing that I love what you're saying is in the end, we get to choose our destiny. We get to choose our story, our path, what's next. We get to decide, does this align for me? And it's one of the gifts of just talking to you today and sharing your story, Whitney, is really your commitment to living in alignment with yourself, with your purpose, with your spark, with this higher vibration. And to do that with grace, to do that with curiosity, to do that with courage. I mean, I just hear it in everything you're saying. And it's
Thank
one of the
you.
reasons I was like, yes, we need to talk here. This is all about the whole point. Just like I know we're on the same page, love, love, love our audiences, podcasts. They're such a great way to just share experience, strength, empowerment, hope, ways of living so we can be our best self. Your Youest you, your connectedness to your soul self, whatever you want to call it. And I'm excited for you. I have a sense that the next chapter, the next dish, the next
Ooh, yes.
the next dish, I love that, is just right around the corner. And for anyone listening, just as a reminder, we're talking real time here.
Mhm.
You're choosing to do this consciously, awake, aware, obviously, carefully. It doesn't sound like you're just, okay, I'm throwing this part out, but it's really, you're paying attention to the signs. Your body is telling you, yep, that anger is a sign this does not work. This does not feel good to me. And this to me is one of the biggest lessons, nuggets for everyone listening. Listen to yourself, like what Chef Whitney is talking to us about. Listen to those signs. Listen if you have anger, resentment, envy, frustration, grief. Listen, tune in, follow that. That is not just a random emotion, especially if it happens over and over again in a similar situation. And I know in my heart of heart, I know that this will lead you to something greater for yourself and for others. That's how the universe works, I believe.
Yeah, and you and I are both here because we love health and wellness. And we know
Yeah.
that if a negative, low vibration feeling or energy keeps showing up in our day, that we have to stop doing the behavior that's creating it, or
Yeah.
else it will get stuck in a part of our body or in an organ. So I know I have to stop doing behavior or activities that are creating that because I don't want to hold that within me and I don't want it to turn into something else down the road. So it's just a sign when it pops up
Yeah.
to move a new direction. And it's so uncomfortable because we
Mm.
love consistency. It feels so good. I love getting into a rhythm. Um, but the pivots just keep coming.
We're in the kitchen without any recipes, girl. That's what I feel like. There's zero recipes. There's a lot of
Yeah.
possible ingredients. There's an ingredient that does not work anymore. It's like you're allergic. And it's like, all right, switch up the kitchen. All new dishes, girl. That's my little metaphoric, just seeing you with like, oh shoot, but you get to keep your spices, your beautiful high vibe organic spice blend. Um, I just, what I want to ask before we wrap, first of all, I feel like
Mhm.
we need to do round two where we talk more about foods, little tips and things that you learned. I know there's like so much more, and this has just been, I got to be honest, I'm like, I do not want this to end. This has just been so delicious, literally talking to you.
No.
So
I wish
delicious.
you could come over for dinner after
Oh,
this and the
trust
rest of
me.
you listening.
I know we should well, maybe someday we'll do some sort of gathering. Could get our peoples together and I don't know, some fun, delicious. I'm always for food, always for delicious food, high vibe food. Is there, if anything, I call them heart flares, Whitney, where
Mhm.
your heart is like, I just want to share this. Are there any heart flares, something maybe that you feel like you want to share that's just feeling like would be that's there, that's intuitively led, or just around what we've been talking about? Anything that is still there for you that you would like to share with our listeners before we wrap?
Well, one thing that we've been talking about today is, once you find something that works for you and you do it, you do it, you do it, you do it, and then someday it doesn't spark you up like it used to. And you keep doing it anyways because it's what you've been doing for a long time and you thought it worked. And I want to remind you guys this happens with food. And you write about this in your book, Julie, that your thing is chocolate M&Ms, or your thing is French fries, or like your thing is a certain type of potato chip, or you really love, it can even be healthy. You love a gala apple and you eat it all the time. And then one day you take a bite and it doesn't taste the same anymore. You've shifted and that's wonderful. You've probably upgraded energetically. You've moved up. And so when you eat that food, it's not satisfying you like you used to. Like maybe you used to always order a Papa John's pizza with pepperoni on a Friday night and it really fulfilled you and it's not satisfying you anymore. But now you went and you ordered one and it's all organic flour and the ingredients are upgraded. And now when you eat that one's hitting the spot. The other one doesn't work for you anymore. And so as we evolve, it affects the way we consume food and our cravings and what satisfies and nourishes us. And when that happens, recognize that it's a great thing. It's such a great thing when old cravings fall off and you have to upgrade your food. It's a positive sign and a big congratulations to you.
Mm. That is drop the mic. I've never heard anyone say that or say it like that. And I can tell you personally speaking, this has happened in my life. Like never in a million years
Yeah.
did I think I'd be eating the way I'm eating today. Never from where I started. That is so beautiful, Whitney. And literally for you listening, that upgrade, that shift, I love what you just said. Really, it's like not only is it okay to change for your taste to change, it's wonderful. Let's celebrate it.
Yeah, and don't shame how you used to eat. I love looking back and thinking about what I was eating in 2014 in Washington, D.C. before I went to culinary school, and what I loved, in my 20s when I thought I was being healthy, and what I loved in college and high school. It's kind of funny to look back and see what you were really into food-wise and beverage-wise, and, things that you would never desire to take a sip of today or eat today. But don't beat yourself up over it because you did consume that, because you were super into the, sugar-free, 0 calorie, whatever it was. Just laugh and know and be grateful that you've moved on and moved upward.
Oh gosh. All right, we're going to just laugh. That should be like period for everything. Add some humor, add some lightness.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely. No shame. Enjoy. I know I was laughing. I'm like, oh my God, the amount of non-fat, sugar-free frozen yogurt I consumed, Snackwells in the 90s. I mean, come on.
Me too. Me too. Oh, I was at World Market the other day, finding things for an event that I was doing. And I passed a display of Clearly Canadian, which I haven't seen since the late 80s. And I started laughing hysterically. Like, because I drank Clearly Canadian in third grade, I was the cool kid in my class. And I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole now.
Yeah.
But I passed the display and laughed. It made me smile, but I had no desire to pick up a bottle because there isn't any energetic connection between the two. We are not in alignment, so I do not desire it. But if I was passing a stand of in-season apples at the DuPont Farmers Market, I would want them all because they are the best apples I've ever had in my life. So we shift, and it's so much fun because God knows what I'm going to be attracted to a year from now.
Well, we'll have to have you back and see. Well, I'll put that out there. We'll see. What is Chef Whitney attracted to in a year from now?
Yeah.
Dare. We'll put it on as a dare. Thank you so much from my heart to yours. You are such a gift. You're such a I love your authenticity, your vulnerability, and I want to thank my beautiful listener for being along the conversation with us. I feel like we're all in this cool little like farm to table restaurant listening to you, and just so many nuggets of wisdom. Thank you for sharing what's really going on, your story, your courage. I am excited to see what comes out of this pause and tuning in.
Thank you. And I look forward to hanging out with my new old friend one of these days very soon.
It's happening. And thank you everyone so much. We're sending love and light, both of us. I can feel, I'm going to speak for Whitney. I can see it. And may you be blessed by this podcast. May you remember that you always have choice. And if it's not feeling right, if something's not feeling right, whether it's the food you're eating, the thoughts you're thinking, the job you're in, sit with it. Ask, what is the gift there? What's the message? What can I do here? Because you always are in the driver's seat, and it is all about becoming and living life as your Youest you. So much love.